Hey, what's up? Again, I have really, really, really bad audio, probably, and I apologize, but nothing I could do right now at the moment. But I thought I'd do a little recording about the CW because I brought it up before and why I don't like it. And just so I could refresh my memory, I actually, one second. Yeah, so I actually took a little glance over as I just went online, typed in CW shows to see what was going on. And I see they have something called The Professionals, they have March, um, they have Leonardo, Superman, like Lois and Clark, blah, blah, blah. The Flash, and I do see a few shows on there, if, when I immediately look at it. And I still stand by my statements because I was thinking about, I like sci-fi and superheroes and stuff, and I was thinking about how I only watch the CW because I'm like, oh, Flash is on TV, awesome. But the thing is, like, when it comes to, let's say, Star Wars, right? I'm be quick with the Star Wars thing. When it comes to Star Wars, it wasn't just the Empire Strikes Back and the prequel films and these new films. There was also games, video games from the Nintendo 64 and pod racing games and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic that was actually made by BioWare, if I remember correctly. My favorite company before well, I don't. Anyway, moving on. They made Knights of the Old Republic, and they actually wanted. It was supposed to be like a story about Luke, but they said, "Hey, we want to take a crack at our own original story. Can we do that?" And they had to get special permissions because Lucasfilms, they're really, really, you got to run you have to run to them for every little change, but they got permission and they made Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, but the second one, it went through some production problems from behind the scenes and there was some cut content and blah, 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 blah. But fans have fixed that. Uh, but the thing is that, well, what's that got to do with the CW? Well, just like with the Star Wars films, there were games and books, a lot of books, a lot of books, and comics, a lot of comics. And there was even, I actually like the Star Wars Clone Wars series because it actually took place in the Clone Wars. It did have interesting episodes with parasitic aliens and battle on Mandalore and all these other things. It had all these good things, but it it was really good. I'm not saying it's bad. I also like Echo. Echo Team was this group of clones that's like well, they weren't called Echo Team, I don't think. But there was Echo and Fives and all these clones. I'm trying to be quick because then I'll get distracted again. But they were clones that weren't gonna make it. They were like bad batches or something, and then they worked together and they became a true team, and then they went on their different missions and stuff. Lot of good stories. Unfortunately for me, who actually likes Star Wars, um, it's not like I can snap my fingers and find new Star Wars content. I can go buy the old books and all the old comics if I can find them online and download them. But it's kind of like that with the CW. So if there's a network saying, hey, we're going to make a Flash TV show, it's like, oh, the Flash. When did they do the Flash? And then you look it up and it's like the 80s and 90s and you're like, "Oh, it's been a little bit before we had a Flash. It's been a little bit since we had a Flash TV show." So I want to watch it. And then so that's kind of the thing where there's not where I like these worlds, but there's not really that much new content to for me to get, for me to consume, if you will. Now, I could, in theory, scour the internet and find the comics from the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s and download every gigabyte, every terabyte, every scrap of comics I could find and just have them on 5 different hard drives. Maybe I could. Maybe I could do that. But that takes a lot of time, honestly. And realistically, that's good, but it's always nice to see something new. So when I hear there's a new show coming out, I'm like, oh, cool. I get to watch the thing I like. But the CW again does high school drama, and they have something called kung fu and all these stuff. And to be honest, I've never watched anything other than the superhero ones. And I was thinking about it. And no, I lied. I actually did watch a little bit of Riverdale, but it just falls into the same, type of stuff that I complain about. And I was thinking about quality, you know, about why I love Star Wars and why I love all these other shows that I like. Like I was almost willing to watch Superman like Clark and Lois, whatever. And I'm not saying I was almost willing because I thought it was bad, but I didn't want to watch another show and it'd be like, oh, this is crap. I don't like it. And then I had some people saying it was bad and some people saying it was good. And unfortunately, I gotta be honest, I never watched the series. I know very little bits of information, but it's like, what's the point of watching something that I know is gonna be crap, you know? Uh, but I was thinking about it, and when it comes to the superhero content, because I do like that stuff, it's the problem is it. Let me try this. I was working in this warehouse job, right? No big deal. It's a very normal job. And there was this guy that I was talking to, and he's like, "Oh, you watch this new show?" And I think somebody else brought up anime, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you seen the new My Hero arc?" Because My Hero was very mainstream. And what happened was that the other guy, and I don't want to name names or anything, but the other guy said, "Oh, anime? Oh, that shit's stupid." And I'm like, "What?" And without being too graphic, he basically explained in his own way that anime was only for was only for perverts and weirdos. And I'm like, why? And I'm like, well, why do you say that? And he basically said that every anime is about a high school girl with big proportions, and the guy's just he gets to sleep with all of them. And I'm like, what? And I guess that's true for certain genres like the harem anime and the wish fulfillment isekais, but I try to tell him, no, that's not true. I mean, there's Dragon Ball Z, that's an old classic. There's Cowboy Bebop and all these other series and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nope, nope, it's all just perverts and guys creeping on junior high and lolicon. I'm like, huh. And I'm like, well, what the hell happened? And maybe he just doesn't like it. And that's okay. Not everyone has like anime. But his reaction, I was like, where is he getting this impression? And then I realize it's because of my same complaints with the anime community. It's all mainstream stuff. So if you go on a website, it'll be like something like, oh, cheat magician. This kid, he's got all the superpowers and all the girls want him, and they're gonna like rub him down later. Oh, here's a new guy called In a World with my Smartphone, and I have a smartphone that makes me basically a god, and all the girls want my junk, and I'm the most amazing thing that ever happened in all the universe. And then here's another show. It's like, oh, in another world with my sister who's also a lolicon, and I can't and she can't love me, and like you know what I'm trying to say. It's all that wish fulfillment, 12-year-old, and then I have a skill called Skill Taker, and it's an ability that like lets me like take your skill, and now you can't hit me, haha. But I cast my skill that does actually no you can't, because my skill taker, it not only takes your skill but also make it, like makes it better. So now I have this barrier and you can't touch me. It kind of sounds like, you know what I mean? Sounds like something a child would write. And also, there's this girl who's also like she's like this elf, and and she's got the biggest rack, and she totally thinks I'm super cool, and I'm sorry. I got a little bit carried away, but that's the thing. So what I'm thinking happened is at some point somebody said, "Hey, you should watch anime." And then they sent him like the most pervy, wish fulfillment, 12-year-old type of anime, and it immediately turned him off. He's like, ew. And that's all anime is to him. And there are, there are some good stories. I'm not gonna lie. I thought Violet Evergarden was good. It was good all around. The animation, the type of story, blah blah blah. Very nice, very nice. But I don't remember in Violet Evergarden that there was a harem, that there was some main protagonist who wants to screw all the girls, and then it's just a story about her and her journey, which is very nice. And but again, what does this have to do with the CW? Well, the CW, they kind of handle their superhero shows, which are arguably I want to watch because I like that genre. They take their shows and they kind of handle it kind of like that guy I worked with, where they don't really know much about it, and it seems like they actually hate it. And I don't care what the interviews say, or it's like, yeah, when I was 10 years old, I always read Iron Man, and oh no, no, it was, oh, when I was 10 years old, I always read the comic line of the specific character that I am specifically playing on this show every day. She was my hero. It's like, I don't care. Oh yeah, I always did all of this, and yeah, I was a huge nerd coincidentally, and now coincidentally I get to play the character that I was coincidentally nerdy over. Yeah, no, I don't see it. I don't see it. You're lying, you know. 'Cause just like in my other recordings that kind of got off the rails, like when I can talk about Star Trek and Star Wars and other shows, not just, those two, for a long time because I like them. I think they're cool. I think they're interesting. And I could even talk a lot about the Mass Effect series, which is a video game series, because I think it's cool and I like it. I have things to say about it. And a very common thing that happened back in the day, I was never really a part of this, but we had discussions on it with some other people and myself, which was, oh, which series did, people like? And I said, well, I like DS9. And this other guy said, I like DS9. And one guy said, well, I like the next generation. And it's not that mine is better than yours. We were talking about it and we would just have a nice discussion. And it's like, well, uh, Captain Archer kind of sucked. And I was like, well, he didn't suck. It's just that the direction of the series was this. Like, yeah. And we could have a nice discussion. We could also argue. But it wasn't anything out of hate. It was because we like this stuff. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that we can't have different opinions. Like me and this other guy both agreed that we love Benjamin Sisko and that storyline for that show. And then this guy says, "Oh, I hate Voyager." It's like, why? Because all they do is they fly, and then the next week, the problem they solve doesn't matter because now they're like in another galaxy or something. And I'm like, yeah, I could see that, but it's not really about that. It's about them, the crew, and how they, You know what I mean? It's not about that last episode they fixed a problem on this planet or were involved in a problem and then maybe solved it. It was how this crew journeys through space on their own and how these strong bonds that they formed keep them together. It's kind of like it it's basically their big family. This crew of people are stranded out in the middle of nowhere, journeying to get home, which will take years, and they become more than shipmates. They become more than colleagues. They literally become a family. And then they even have Neelix, and I like Neelix. Neelix was a guy. Oh, this is coming into Star Trek again. Neelix was a guy who basically may have done nefarious things in the past, but after joining the crew, he becomes a better person and the type of person he wants to be. And I don't want to spoil it, but what they do with his character towards the end of the series was very nice and very sweet, and it was really well done. I can talk about things like that because they're cool and interesting, and I think they have a lot of things to say, but also it also does well in the technical writing aspects, cinematography, music, setting up a scene, character motivations. Not saying every single episode that ever came out was the best thing to ever happen, but it got the basics right. When it comes to and swinging it back to the CW before I forget, the CW doesn't seem to do that with these shows. If anything, it seems like they hate them. Much like that guy who thought all of anime was about an overpowered dude macking on 12-year-olds, which isn't true. I, I can understand why he thinks that because that's what's mainstream. That's what's pumping out of Crunchyroll and Funimation, and that's the stuff they choose to advertise because it's just wish fulfillment. And it gets kind of boring, especially if you actually have a like a crumb of an interesting idea, but then you ruin it with the stuff the guy said that he thinks anime is. And that's the CW because when it came to, I think the main two that really pissed me off was Supergirl and Batwoman. Uh, the Flash, I kind of got tired of because it seemed like they were going in. Well, that should be its own thing. You know what? I'll talk about the Flash later. Uh, let me let me let me just stick with Supergirl. Supergirl just seems like Mean Girls, but then they just put her in a costume and a cape. You know. And some things happen, but I think I mentioned the storyline with John. Oh no, I didn't. So the Martian Manhunter in this universe, he is the last Green Martian to ever exist, kind of like his other stories and the variations. Now, in this version, later on, this is a spoiler, but who really cares? So, Supergirl, there's this MacGuffin weapon back on Mars. In this universe, the white Martians killed all of the green Martians and put them in camps and killed them all because they're like, we're better and you suck, so you're gonna die. So they go to Mars and they find his father, and his father is the one that knows what the MacGuffin is, and it turns out he's been alive all this time back on Mars in a white Martian prison because they're trying to like mind hack him in order to find this MacGuffin super weapon. But he doesn't allow them to succeed. So they've been trying to like basically forcibly enter his mind for years, unbeknownst to John. So they find him, and he's like, "Oh, you're very clever. This is a trick." Because even though he can see his son and stuff like that, he believes it's all part of some elaborate ploy. Because think about it, he's been alone on a planet, his entire race dead, his entire family dead, his son dead. At least that's what he thought. And his only reason to exist now is to protect this secret that they've been torturing him for decades over. And even when his son is standing right in front of him, he can't see him because he thinks it's some sort of illusion. And then they escape and they go back to his house. And the father breaks down and he says, you know, you have broken me. You know that they basically broke his spirit by using the memory of his son and his home, and now he's basically completely destroyed. You know, his spirit is broken, and then he realizes, you know, that that is his son, that he really is there standing in front of him. And then they have this nice moment, and then Supergirl goes off to do the thing, and they punch each other, and then they get the MacGuffin, and then blah blah blah. And then they just forget about his dad. They forget the dad that exists for a little bit, and when they reintroduce him, the joke is he kind of looks like this older guy, kind of like dementia looking ass, and he's like, the joke is, hey, so what are you doing, blah blah blah, and the joke is, oh, he's been trying to look for a bathroom, uh, and it's like, oh well, how long is, and apparently the joke is, well, it's so stupid, he's he's been trying to look for a bathroom, and he's been looking for a bathroom for 2 human weeks, for 2 weeks, but he didn't want to bother anyone apparently to ask where it was. Yeah, that's so funny. But that could have been funny, but not in this show. Um, so, and then John has to be like strong armed to kind of hang out with his dad, the last remaining member of his family and species. And he kind of treats it like it's a burden. And even his dad's like, "Oh, I want to try coffee. Ooh, I like coffee. This is interesting." And he's like, "Oh, I want to spend time with my boy, my son of I haven't seen you in, I don't know, a century or some shit. I don't know." And then his son, it acts mean to him, and he's like, "Oh, well, if I'm a burden, I'll just go back to the alien bureau building." And then he likes, you know, he goes away. And what a fucking dick John is. And then they kind of explain it away, like he's been on his own for so long and his job and blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, screw your job. You have other capable people working under you. This is the last member of your species that got genocided. Not only, it's not even like 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 if it was another green Martian, a random green Martian, maybe you could let him adjust and then help him adjust to Earth. But this is your father, and then they kind of, oh, the ending is, hey dad, let's get an apartment together. And then I just droned it out, and I don't remember what happened after that. But you see how the first part sounds really cool. Oh my god, my dad's alive. He's been in this Martian prison where they've been trying to hack his brain to find a super weapon. And then his father is so distraught. You know, he breaks down. And then he realizes, oh, that's really my son. This isn't a trick. This isn't some mind manipulation. That's my son. And it's a big moment. And then they just forget about it and they treat it like it's worthless. And then they just don't really do anything with it, if I remember correctly. So Kara can go off and complain about boys and go punch a guy and then realize they don't have enough money in the budget to do that. And then they just talk around and eat biscuits, and then she gets to talk to non guy Daily Planet woman who's totally a super, she's like a boss woman, but she's a girl boss, but I don't know. I guess the more interesting story could fall on the side because we can't have anybody else have an interesting story or even have one at all. So, but that's basically it. That I kind of got distracted all over the place, but the summary should be that when it comes to new content, that I'm like, oh, I want to watch that. They always do a poor job because it seems like they actively hate the thing they're working on. If the CW said we're gonna make a Star Wars show, I already know how it's gonna go and what it's gonna be about. Just like how that guy I worked with, he wasn't even he he well again, to not be as graphic, he basically said that all anime was for perverts and all this other stuff because I'm guessing somebody introduced him to like some super etchy show and that really turned him off, so he never gave any other shows a chance because it's not just etchy. There's all these other genres that can be really good and have good stories and even good action scenes. But he's like, nope. And the CW does the same thing. If it's Star Wars or The Flash or any other thing, they treat it with the same respect as that guy I worked with. And and then the other thing was, uh, yeah, I remember now. I can have discussions about these things because I genuinely like it and I like talking about it. And that's something I don't get with the CW. Another thing, what else did I say? Oh yeah, I said that even if they have an interesting idea, they kind of ruin it. And that's why I brought up the revelation of John's father still being alive on Mars. And coincidentally enough, it was his white Martian girlfriend that helps him figure that out because this white Martian basically did green face, and she transformed into a green Martian. And John's like, oh, we're the last two green Martians in existence in the entire universe, and now uh, I actually. Now that I think about it, actually have genuine feelings for you, like romantic feelings. And it's not just because we're the last, but because I actually maybe love you or whatever. But actually, turns out she's a green Martian. Sorry, not green. She's a white Martian, and she's a good white Martian because she doesn't agree with what her people did. And now she's like, yeah, I'm not a space Nazi. The other ones are, but I'm not because I don't like being a space Nazi, and I never was. And then he gets all pissed off at her, and then he's like, I hate you, which is pretty understandable. And then they just keep doing whatever. And then yeah, by the way, there's a weapon on Mars, and your dad could still be alive or whatever. So yeah. And then they just forget about it, so Supergirl can go be with her Daxamite boyfriend while they shoot pool and passive aggressively flirt or regular flirt. I forget what. I genuinely forget what their relationship was during when all this was happening. But that's my point. I don't know. Okay, I'm just rambling on. But yeah, but I hope that gets the point across. I know I'm not. I haven't articulated it in the way I want to do it, but again, these aren't scripted. I'm just going literally from memory, right off the top of my head. The only thing I had to look up was what their current lineup was, and even though I looked at it, I only named like Leonardo and March because I genuinely forgot as soon as I looked it up. That's how much interest I have for it. But anyway, let me stop rambling on because this is holy crap, it's going on 30 minutes. Yep, so that's the summary. That's kind of partly why I don't like it, or mainly. I bet I could write a script later. Anyway, that's it. Go away, go have fun, go, go do something else. Peace out.